I tried a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Platinum with only Steel types. Steel type Pokemon are some of the best Pokemon out there, but Sinnoh isn't exactly welcoming with some terrifying late game threats. In order to beat this challenge, we're going to need strategy and flat out dumb luck, because in a Nuzlocke, if a Pokemon faints, it's dead forever and I can only catch the first Steel type per new area. The rest of the rules for this playthrough are on the screen and the description down below. With that, let's get started by welcoming my starter, Everlong the Piplup. Since there are no Steel types and Everlong won't evolve into an Empoleon after 4 gym badges, it's just us. I mean, I could have caught an Onix, but I forgot to, and Onix sucks.
Ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
It's not like it matters because Onix wouldn't have done much damage into Rourke and his rock types. Rourke leads off with his Geodude, and I with Everlong, who outspeeds and gets the one shot with a bubble. Second is Onix, but as we just discussed, Onix sucks. Even still, he outspeeds and sets up a Stealth Rock, which is completely useless as I only have one Pokemon. It doesn't matter because Bubble gets the KO, and just kidding, Onix lives with a Sliver. Rourke does heal up, but it doesn't get Onix back to full HP, meaning another Bubble is enough for the KO. This brings Everlong to level 15, which is fine because as soon as the battle starts, the next level cap goes into effect. Anyway, this just leaves Rourke with his ace Cranidos, and Cranidos goes for a Leer first turn as I go for a Growl to reduce his massive attack stat. This means that Headbutt's massive damage output is reduced as I can go for a Bubble. Cranidos then outspeeds and leaves Everlong with just 10 HP, but that first Bubble must have been a really low roll because another one gets the KO, winning me the battle and the first gym badge. After this, Everlong evolves into a very awkward teen, and thankfully don't have to use him because in Floroma Town, I can get some honey and slather it on a tree to get my next encounter, a Burmy. Burmy is a bug type, but by fighting some guards indoors, I turn him pink, meaning that when he evolves, it's into Trash Cloak Wormadam. Ironically, Trash Cloak Wormadam is the best out of the 3 Wormadams. This does mean you have to say goodbye to Everlong, but we'll be seeing him soon. For now, it's off to take on Mars and her demonic Pruggly, but time the Wormadam can wall both the Zubat and the Pruggly. While he doesn't hit particularly hard, Mars' attacks don't do too much damage. Her lead Zubat is taken out in a few turns. For extra spite, Time even eats Pruggly's berry with a bug bite. A few turns later, Pruggly also falls, winning me a pretty straightforward battle. Fun fact, Wormadam resists all of Pruggly's moves, so he is a great wall. After this, I discover this awesome statue of Dialga and or Palkia, depending on how you look at it. For the question of the day, tell me what Pokemon you see. I personally see Dialga. While you're down there, you might as well subscribe to the channel for daily videos. Eterna City also means some new encounters, the first of which is a Bronzor named Betterman with Levitate, which is a phenomenal ability. And yes, the irony is not lost on me with the nickname. Second is a Nosepass named Badlands, who is literally a giant nose. Bro could not catch a break. Anyway, it's not like it matters because it's already time to fight Gardenia and her Grass Squad for badge number 2. She leads off with Turtwig and I with Time itself. A Bug Bite barely leaves the Twig alive as he sets the sun up. Gardenia then heals up as a Bug Bite drags the turtle back into the red. Fortunately, Gardenia doesn't heal, meaning another Bug Bite gets the KO. Second is Cherrim, who transforms thanks to the sun and then sets the sun back up, and then a Bug Bite brings the Cherry into the yellow. After taking a Razor Leaf with just 3 HP, a second Bug Bite gets the KO, leaving Gardenia with her ace Roserade. After taking a Magical Leaf, I go for a Bug Bite and manage to steal Roserade's Citrus Berry. Fortunately, a few turns later, Time emerges victorious, winning me the battle and the second gym badge. After this, I backtrack to Orpurk City where I revive an Armor Fossil. Why do all Pokemon scientists have to be such jerks? Anyway, while I wait, I go ahead and pick up an Onix, which will be a great Pokemon later down the line, as long as he's not an Onix. After picking Black the Sheldon up, who I end up using a lot less than I expected, I evolve Alive the Onix into a Steelix, which is probably one of the best encounters in this challenge. I then go through Mount Coronet and watch Cyrus talk about entirely nothing, and then I meet up with Looker. I think he might be stalking me, but I don't have time to worry about that because I messed up. You see, I accidentally used the Diamond and Pearl level cap of 30 instead of the Platinum level cap of 26. I hate the internet sometimes. Unfortunately, I didn't realize, so I'm so sorry about that. I promise I don't make videos or purposely give myself advantages. Even with the higher level cap, Fantina still gives me a really hard time. She leads off with Duskull and I with Time. I go for a Protect for some reason, causing Duskull to whiff a Will-O-Wisp. I then go for a Hidden Power, which doesn't affect Duskull as he goes for a Future Sight. A Bug Bite then does decent damage as Will-O-Wisp connects. After taking a Pursuit, I switch into Badlands for his debut battle as he tanks the Future Sight. I then go for a Thunder Wave to paralyze the Ghost, which works first turn. A Rock Throw then surprisingly doesn't KO, causing Fantina to heal her Ghost back up, and a Rock Throw does about a third. After taking a Shadow Sneak, another Rock Throw picks up the KO, which brings in Haunter. Haunter fortunately misses a Hypnosis as Badland connects with a Thunder Wave. A rock throw then does under 50% as I get confused. With my luck, I know if to switch, so I swap out into Alive on a Hypnosis, which luckily misses. I then sub the Sand and raise my special defense, but Shadow Claw gets the critical hit. Still, it doesn't do too much damage, and I'm free to go for a rock throw for the KO. Hey, that rhymes. Vicious leaves Fantina with her ace Miss Magius. After taking a Magical Leaf, rock throw only does about a third. Follow-up rock throw then brings Miss Magius to her berry, healing her up. After taking a Magical Leaf, I have one last rock throw, bringing the witch into the yellow, and then I swap into black for his first and only battle as Fantina heals up. From here, Miss Magius uses Confuse Ray, and then I start going for Ancient Power to fish for the Omni Boost. Eventually, I get it, and I also get the KO, winning me the 3rd gym badge. Anybody else find it broken that we can find one of the most powerful TMs after 3 badges? Hey, I'm not complaining, as this will be great for our next gym fight. I then make it to Veilstone City, where I can indulge in my favorite pastime, gambling. I mean the flashing lights and the fact that I got a shiny Clefable, who wouldn't love gambling? Seriously, Pokemon has to be related to like half the gambling addictions out there. I'll honestly never understand gambling addictions. How are you addicted to losing? If you're not James Holzhauer, then why bother? I mean, dude won $2.4 million in the span of a couple weeks. He constantly bet a ton of money to the point where there's a conspiracy theory that the show actually kicked him off by making the clues easier because he was bankrupting the show. James's whole strategy was his extensive knowledge and betting big, but if everyone else has the same amount of knowledge, then there's no strategy. The main grounds for this theory is that James's losing game had the highest Coriat score in any Jeopardy game played. A Coriat score determines how hard or how easy a game of Jeopardy is. A high Coriat score means an easy game, and a low Coriat score means a hard game. Personally, I don't really believe in this theory, and you shouldn't harass people involved with the show, and jokes aside, if you're struggling with a gambling addiction, please seek help and call this number. Gambling is stupid, and even with all the cool TMs I get, it won't even help me against Maylene's fighting types, which all deal super effective damage into steel types. What we need is a new encounter, because even though Time takes neutral damage from fighting moves, he can't do anything to half of Maylene's Pokemon.
I'm in danger!
Thankfully, that comes to in 4 where I catch a Scyther. Scyther isn't a steel type, but once I evolve him, he will be invaluable to the team. I name him my hero for obvious reasons. He even has Ignition to boost weak moves, which is a phenomenal ability. With Scyther fully evolved, I'm ready to tackle Maylene. She leads off with Meditite, and I get my hero out there. Meditite outspeeds, and it's a fake out for a flinch and some chip damage. On the following turn, Technician boosted Wing Attack takes out, I don't even know what you're based on. Second is Lucario, who can't be one-shot by Wing Attack. I decide to switch into Better Man, who takes way too much damage from a Drain Punch. I then decide to switch into Time, who takes the Force Palm for some decent damage. I then go for a Protect for some reason, and then decide to switch into Live, who tanks the Drain Punch. Unfortunately, this puts us in a really bad position. We have to dodge a critical hit Drain Punch. Drain Punch comes out, and luckily it doesn't crit, meaning Earthquake is enough for the KO, leaving Maylene with just her Machoke. I then switch into my hero to tank the Karate Chop. Wing Attack then barely misses out on the KO as Machoke sets up a Focus Energy. Maylene for some reason doesn't heal, probably because she suspects it's all over. Either way, that's the 4th gym badge obtained, and without Scizor, that battle would have probably been impossible. After this, I meet up with Looker, who keeps following me, a 10-year-old. Is this guy a detective or a YouTuber in the year 2024? From here, I make it to Pastoria City, where a rival fight with Barry awaits. He leads off with Staravia, and I with my hero, who gets intimidated. Staravia plays dirty by setting up a double team as I miss my false swipe. Staravia then goes for another double team, but Wing Attack connects for a smidge. Staravia then mirror matches me as I tank a Wing Attack and then miss my own Wing Attack. After tanking another Wing Attack, my Wing Attack connects and leaves Staravia in the red. Fortunately, after tanking a final Wing Attack, I get the KO with my Wing Attack. Second is Ponyta, so I switch into Life on an Ember. After taking an Ember, which luckily doesn't burn or get a critical hit, an Earthquake destroys the Fire Horse. Third is Buizel, so I switch into Better Man on an Aqua Jet. Fortunately, after taking a second Aqua Jet, I luckily connect with a Hypnosis. This ensures a quick and painless death as 3 extra sensories pick up the KO, which brings in Grottle. Since I'm low, I switch into Badlands on a Withdrawal. I then go for a Thunder Wave before tanking a Razor Leaf. Fortunately, I get a free switch into Time as Grottle stays fully paralyzed. A Bug Bite then does a bit of damage as Grottle once again stays fully paralyzed. Man, Barry is such a loser. A few turns later, Bug Bite gets the KO, winning me the battle against Barry the loser. I'm sure me insulting Barry won't come back to bite me later. With the new level cap, Everlong comes back to the team, and this means we have to say goodbye to Time. Sorry Time, you're just outclassed by fully evolved Pokemon. Thank you so much for your service. This brings me to the fight against Crasher Wake and his water types for badge number 5. He leads off with Gyarados, who cuts my attack with Intimidate. Gyarados is a really scary Pokemon, but luckily my hero has Natural Gift. RIP. For those who don't know, Natural Gift turns into a different type of move depending on the held berry. By holding a Pecha Berry, Natural Gift turns into a 240 base power move, which is boosted by Technician. Unfortunately, Gyarados outspeeds and hits a Waterfall, which flinches. This means I have to dodge a critical hit Waterfall, which luckily happens, meaning Natural Gift is more than enough for the KO. Second is Floatzel, so it's off to Everlong on a Brine. I then start whittling away at Floatzel's HP with Metal Claws as Floatzel goes for crunches. Eventually, I pivot to Alive on a crunch. You may think this is stupid, but this baits out Brine, which does super effective damage. This means I can switch to Better Man, who's now evolved into a Bronzong, who takes Brines better than he tanks crunches. After taking another Brine, Grassnot brings Floatzel into the yellow as he heals up with a Citrus Berry. I then switch into Everlong on a Brine, and then to Badlands on a Crunch. After taking a hard Aqua Jet, I go for a Thunder Wave to paralyze the Seal. From here, it's off to Better Man on an Aqua Jet, who gets the KO with a Grass Knot. Last is Quagsire, whose ground water type isn't doing it any favors. Anyway, that's the 5th gym badge obtained. My god, Barry is such a loser. Look at him. After meeting with Cynthia and her grandma and oh yeah, beating Cyrus, who isn't really that dangerous, I take a boat to Iron Island. From here, I meet a guy named Riley, and he has an egg which will hatch into a Riolu. My goal is to gain his trust and then steal his egg. Fortunately, this guy seems to be an idiot as he gives me the HM and an egg a few minutes later. After riding like a maniac, the egg hatches into a Riolu. After unfortunately handing my Riolu to a Pokemon groomer to raise his friendship, which is kinda messed up when you think about it, Evenflow evolves into a powerful Lucario. In fact, he's so powerful that he's cleanly able to destroy Byron's entire team for the 6th gym badge with just 1 Sword Stance and boosted R-Spheres. But that makes sense considering Byron is just like his son Rourke and can't win a battle for his life. After this, I meet the squad consisting of Barry, Dawn, and Rowan in a library. Dawn and I are telling Rowan how many gym badges we've obtained as Barry is just sitting in the corner picking his nose like an idiot. For me, it's back to some random forest where I had to take on Commander Saturn. It's not a hard fight by any means, and I head back to Twin Leaf Town to take on Mars, but with higher levels her team is completely outclassed and outgunned. With that mini-boss section over, I head to Fuego Ironworks to pick up my final encounter, a Magnezone named Wishlist, who is, like every encounter in this challenge, amazing. Whoever designed this route actually cooked. This looks so good, especially on Route 208. After this, I arrive at Snow Point City, home of an unnamed gym leader. If anybody could help me with her name, that would be great. Anyway, this random person leads off with a Sneasel and I with my hero. After taking an Aerial Ace, an X-Scissor is enough for the KO. Second is Piloswine, who lives an X-Scissor in the yellow as Earthquake does massive damage. Fortunately, I outspeed and KO with a second X-Scissor. Third is Abomasnow, who sets up the Hail. Great. I decide to risk it all by hitting an X-Scissor, which is just shy of the KO as Focus Blast and Hail Chip leaves me with just 3 HP. Oh my god. I decide to never risk my hero's life again, so I switch to Better Man on a Focus Blast. And then a second Focus Blast leaves me with just 11 HP as Extra Sensor gets the KO, and then Hail Chip brings me down to just 4 HP. Oh my god. Fourth from this unnamed trainer is Frostlass, so I switch into Wishlist. Frostlass's entire gimmick is using Double Team and Snow Cloak, meaning that you can't hit it. If you're not careful, Frostlass can sweep entire teams, so she is not a force to be reckoned with. Fortunately, Wishlist is the perfect counter. Wishlist can't really be touched, and it's more of a waiting game than anything. About 3 minutes later, Frostlass falls with some Magnet Bombs, winning me the battle and the 7th gym badge. After watching Jupiter beat Barry up, as she rightfully should, he's a total loser, and meeting with Looker, he brings me to the fight with Cyrus. Luckily, Cyrus's Pokemon aren't fully evolved, and this battle definitely doesn't have any close calls. Thankfully, all of my Pokemon get out alive, meaning that Cyrus uses Dialga and Poke to summon Giratina, which opens up the Distortion world. Luckily, Cynthia shows up and doesn't really do anything. I don't understand why you want to leave the universe in the hands of a 10-year-old. Some things, even in a fantasy world, don't make much sense. Anyway, this means I have to fight Cyrus, who's actually terrifying with all of his fully evolved Pokemon and a Gyarados. This battle required insane planning, and I'm super happy to show it to you guys. Cyrus leads off with Houndoom, and I with... wait, what? So it turns out my recording software didn't record this battle. I honestly have no clue why. This means I have to recreate the battle through other means. My lead is with my hero, and this may seem stupid, but this can be used to pivot in Everlong on a Flamethrower. This means I can take a Thunderfang, which is halved by a Wakandberry, means Surf gets the KO. Everlong Steel-type baits in Gyarados with Intimidate, which is great. I then switch back to my hero to eat the Earthquake. After taking a Waterfall, which luckily doesn't crit or flinch, I get the KO with a Pecha Berry Natural Gift. My hero's quad weakness to fire types brings in Honchkrow with Heat Wave, so it's up to Magnezone on a Heat Crash, which is half by an Akaberry. This means a Thunderbolt gets the KO, which brings in Weavile. I decide to switch into Even Flow on a random move, all of which are resisted. A 4x super effective Arceer gets the KO, which just leaves Crobat. Fortunately, I can then pivot to Alive, who gets the KO with some rock throws, winning me a pretty scary battle. In challenges like these, pivoting and baiting is super important. Also, that battle is what I think happened, as I don't have the actual footage on me. This brings me to the fight against Volkner for the 8th and final gym badge. He leads off with Jolteon and I with Alive. I set up the Sand as the Pupper whiffs an Iron Tail. On the following turn, Iron Tail connects for a whopping 8 HP as Earthquake sends the Jolteon to next week. Second is Raichu, and since I know I can take a Focus Blast, I stay in, but Raichu ends up missing and an Earthquake KOs. Third is Electric, who hits a Fire Punch and Earthquake doesn't KO. Volkner then heals up, but that must have been a very low roll because on the following turn, Earthquake gets the one-shot. Fourth and last is Luxray, and now we're in a very interesting spot. We can either stay in or switch out, but either way risks a critical hit. I decide to stay in, and Earthquake barely leaves Luxray alive, meaning I have to risk a critical hit Fire Fang. Fire Fang luckily doesn't get the critical hit, and Volkner doesn't heal up, meaning that Earthquake seals the deal, winning me the 8th and final gym badge. With that, I'm at Victory Road. The Elite Four in this game is terrifying. Flint and Bertha in particular are some of the worst trainers for my Steel Brethren to face, but compared to Cynthia, these guys are a cakewalk. Cynthia's team is terrifying. All of her Pokemon have a way to hit me for super effective damage, but I don't even have time to worry about that because Barry's back and wants revenge. All of his Pokemon have a way to hit me for super effective damage. This battle is only doable because the level cap is so high and I'm 9 levels ahead of all of his Pokemon. But even so, this battle is actually insane. He leads off with Staraptor and I with Wishlist. A close combat reduced by a Chople Berry does a smidge as Thunderbolt gets the clean one-shot thanks to the defense drops. This brings in Torterra, so I stay in and I go for a Magnet Rise to lose my ground weakness. Since Torterra knows he can't hit Earthquakes, I switch into Everlong on a crunch for a smidge. From here, an Ice Beam is enough for the one-shot. Third is Heracross, so I switch into my hero on a hard close combat. The issue is that my hero needs to dodge a critical hit close combat, otherwise the run is over. Luckily he does, and with the defense drops, Technician boosted Wing Attack gets the KO. Fourth is Rapidash, so I switch into Everlong on a bounce. Fortunately on the next turn, bounce doesn't paralyze, means Surf gets the KO. Fifth is Floatzel, so it's off to Better Man on a soft Brick Break. After taking a crunch, I connect with a Hypnosis to put Floatzel to sleep. Hypnosis doesn't really matter, but it's nice to have anyway. From here, I switch into Wishlist on Floatzel's guaranteed sleep turn. Floatzel then immediately wakes up and it's a hard Brick Break before Thunderbolt gets the KO, which just leaves Snorlax with Earthquake. I go for a Magnet Rise, meaning that Snorlax will never go for Earthquake. For a Thunder Wave to paralyze the Giant before tanking a hard Body Slam. From here, I decide to switch into Even Flow on a Body Slam that paralyzes. I then get fully paralyzed on the following turn as Earthquake leaves me with just 5 HP. My god, Barry, what have you been feeding this thing, tears? Since I'm dead to anything, I switch into Wishlist on a Body Slam that paralyzes again. I then switch into Better Man with Levitate, who's able to bring the Giant into the yellow before Everlong can clean things up with a Surf. My god, that might have been one of the hardest fights for me in all of Pokemon. With that, we can finally move on to the final part of the game. Here's my final team leveled up to level 59 to match Lucian's Gallade. Keep in mind, held items and movesets will change after each battle because of how insane the Elite Four is. Either way, it all ends here, so let's do this. First in the Elite Four is Aaron, and it's not going to take a miracle to beat him. He leads off with Yanmega and I with my hero. Yanmega sets up a double team as I set up a Sword Stance. Thanks to Speed Boost, Yanmega outspeeds and it's a hard Air Slash as I set up a second Sword Stance. Yanmega then tries to be cheeky by setting up another double team, but Wing Attack hits the KO. Second is Vespiquen, who obviously goes down to a Wing Attack. Third is Heracross, and this is where things are going to get tricky. I have to tank a close combat, but it's neutral and doesn't do too much damage, meaning Wing Attack gets the one-shot. Fourth is Caesar, who I can't one-shot. I decide to switch into Wishlist on an Iron Head. I then go for a Thunder Wave, and 2 Thunderbolts leave Aaron with his non-bug type ace, Drapion. Fortunately, he falls straight through Thunderbolts, winning me the battle and the easiest fight so far. Second is the ground type trainer Bertha, who I am terrified of. She leads off with Whiscash and I with Everlong. A Surf does exactly 50% as I tank a hard Earth Power. Fortunately, a second Surf gets the KO, which brings in Hippowdon, who sets up the Sand. Fortunately, that's all Hippowdon ever gets to do because a Surf gets the clean one-shot. Third is Gliscor, who is terrifying because he knows Ice Fang, Fire Fang, and Earth Power. Thankfully, Everlong Steel type baits out Earthquake, which I can switch to my hero, who tanks it pretty well in the sand. Gliscor then hits a nasty Fire Fang, which luckily doesn't get the critical hit. And then a Yachi Berry Natural Gift, which turns into an Ice type move, gets the KO. Fourth is Golem, and my hero is in no place to fight this thing, so it's off to Better Man on a Thunder Punch. After taking a hard Fire Punch, a Grass Knot gets the one-shot. And last is Rhyperior, and since I know Rhyperior will never go for the ground type move thanks to Levitate, I can switch into Wishlist on a weak Mega Horn. I then outspeed and go for a Magnet Rise to avoid the Earthquake. Since Rhyperior doesn't see the KO with Earthquake, I can start hitting Magnet Bombs. Eventually I do get low, so it's off to Even Flow on a Mega Horn, and then a close combat nails Rhyperior, winning me the battle. Get wrecked, Bertha. Third is the Fire type Elite 4 member Flint, who is terrifying. I lead with Everlong, and he leads with Houndoom. Houndoom outspeeds to set the sun up, which is really bad, and then I misclick to hit an Ice Beam. Since I can tank even a sun boosted flamethrower, I decide to step the rain, but then Flint switches to Infernape, meaning the rain gets set up for free. What? I have no idea how this happened. My guess is that Mach Punch deals super effective damage into Everlong, but I have no idea why he'd switch. If anybody in the comments could let me know, that would be great. Anyway, I count my blessings and KO with a rain boosted Surf. Second is Magmortar, who charges with a Solar Beam and then is also KO'd by a rain boosted Surf. Third is Flareon, who also dies to a Surf. Fourth is Rapidash, who outspeeds and sets the sun back up, means Surf doesn't KO. From here I stay in, but Rapidash hits a hard Solar Beam, which actually doesn't kill because Rapidash sucks. Anyway, this means another Surf gets the KO as Houndoom comes back in. Since I'm low, I switch into Even Flow, who tanks the Flamethrower with a held Aqua Berry. A close combat then gets the KO, winning me the battle. That switch is actually crazy because it made the battle much easier. I honestly plan on sacrificing a Pokemon or two, but I'm gonna count my blessings. Last from the Elite Four is Lucian, the Psychic type trainer. He leads off with Mr. Mime and I with my hero. I set up two Sword Stances as Mr. Mime sets up a Light Screen and a Reflect. After taking a Thunderbolt, X-Scissor gets the KO. Second is Alakazam, who misses a Focus Blast and then is taken out by an X-Scissor. Third is Espeon, who outspeeds at a Psychic before X-Scissor gets the KO. Fourth is Bronzong, so I stay in and KO with an X-Scissor. This leaves Gallade, who I KO with an X-Scissor, winning me the battle. I actually forgot to teach my hero Bullet Punch, which would have made things a lot easier, but I'm just going to count my blessings once again, and we're done with the Elite Four, thankfully. The final fight of the game is against Cynthia, who is arguably the hardest trainer in all of Pokemon. Her team is terrifying. I mean, Garchomp could probably alone sweep my entire team, and most of her team members have super effective damage into all of my Steel types. The only non-scary member is Roserade, but come on, it's a Roserade. Not everybody in this battle is getting out alive, but they're willing to do whatever it takes, to the end. Cynthia leads off with Spiritomb, and I with my hero. I set up a Sword Stance before taking a weak Shadow Ball. In X-Scissors just shy of the KO, as Shadow Ball does some more damage. Since Cynthia is going to burn through one of her full restores, I decide to set up another Sword Stance, and then on the following turn I KO with an X-Scissor. This immediately brings in Cynthia's Ace Garchomp, and with no other play, my hero is going to have to go down. He was a truly invaluable team member and will not be forgotten. With a heavy heart, I watch as he's melted by a flamethrower. But his death is not in vain, as I can get a free switch into Everlong. After tanking an Earthquake, which was reduced by a Shuka Berry, an Ice Beam is able to get the KO and gets the critical hit for good measure. The critical hit didn't matter, but it's nice, and sadly, like my hero before him, Everlong is going to have to go down to Cynthia's Lucario. Everlong was my starter, the Pokemon that has been with us since the start, sort of. With a heavy heart, I watch as Everlong goes down to Lucario's Aura Sphere. With Everlong gone, I get a free switch in Even Flow for free. After taking an Aura Sphere, which is reduced by a held Choppa Berry, Lucario is KO'd by a close combat. This brings in Togekiss, and like my hero and Everlong, Even Flow is going to have to go down. He hits a hard close combat, but then thanks to the defense drops, Water Pulse is more than enough for the KO. Wishless comes in, and with a held Choppa Berry, he tanks the close combat and then gets the KO with a Thunderbolt. Fifth is Milotic, and I have to dodge a critical hit. Milotic is terrifying, it's bulky and it hits like a truck, so if Milotic even gets a couple of critical hits, the entire run is over. My plan is to do some damage with Wishlist, and then have him go down to Milotic's attacks, unless he gets a critical hit Thunderbolt to KO Milotic. That critical hit mattered so much, and without the critical hit, Wishless would have probably been 6 feet under. This just leaves Cynthia with her final Pokemon, Roserade. After taking an Energy Ball, I paralyze Roserade, which pays off as Better Man comes in and the plant is fully paralyzed. Extrasensory then is more than half as Roserade once again stays fully paralyzed. This means that a final Extrasensory seals the deal, winning me the battle and the entire run. That was a really fun run. Towards the end, the final few fights of the game got super hard to borderline impossible. The Steel type is an overall great type, and I'm glad I got to use a bunch of cool Pokemon. The MVP of this challenge was hands down my hero, the Caesar, who's invaluable, and without him this challenge would have probably been impossible. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm trying to put out more content with my goal being to do a Nuzlocke with every single type, and I also want to do some ROM hacks later this year. I have a lot of big videos planned, and I would really like if you came along for the ride. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for future Nuzlocke videos, and also follow me on Twitter for Nuzlocke updates. Thank you so much for watching this video, and have a great day.